On Christmas morning, my family left me alone and flew to Hawaii, texting that they needed a break from my drama. That drama was my grief for my late husband. They didn't know I was the one who controlled their money, so I made one phone call and set a trap they never saw coming. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The silence of Christmas morning was a physical weight. It was the first one without David, and the emptiness of our house felt cavernous. 10 months. 10 months since I'd held his hand as he slipped away, 10 months of navigating a world that had lost its color. I was 48 years old, a widow, and I was learning, a burden. I was in the kitchen, staring at the elaborate brunch I'd prepared. Quiche, fresh fruit, pastries, all the things my parents, Arthur and Beatrice, and my brother, Julian, supposedly loved. They were due at 10. At 10:30, I was still staring at the food, a cold knot of dread forming in my stomach. They were late, which was normal for them, but this felt different. I'd been fragile, I knew that. The drama they referenced was my grief. It wasn't loud or theatrical. It was quiet, heavy, and exhausting. It was the tears that still came at unexpected times, the way I'd drift off mid-conversation, the fact that I just couldn't summon the energy to be the fun Martha anymore. I was the family's responsible one, the trustee, the manager of everything, and now I was the sad one too. At 10:45, my phone buzzed on the granite countertop. It wasn't a call. It was a group text from Julian. My parents were in the chat too. My fingers felt numb as I opened it. The first thing I saw was a picture. Julian, my parents, all three of them grinning, wearing garish floral leis. Behind them, a bright blue sky and palm trees. The text beneath it read, "Surprise, we're heading to Hawaii. We just couldn't handle another holiday with all your drama. We needed a break. Don't worry, we used the emergency card. See you in a couple of weeks. Aloha." I read it once, then twice. My breath hitched. Your drama, they had left me, on my first Christmas alone. They had packed, driven to the airport, and boarded a plane, all while I was prepping their brunch. The brunch they never intended to eat. I sank onto a kitchen stool, the room spinning. They weren't late. They were on a beach. They had used the emergency card, a high-limit credit card linked to the Vance family trust, the trust I managed. The trust my grandparents had left, appointing me, Martha, as the sole trustee, the gatekeeper, the bank. The quiche on the counter was still warm. I looked at the empty place set for David, a small tradition I was trying to maintain just to feel him near. And then I looked back at the phone, at their smiling, carefree faces. The betrayal was worse than the grief itself. The first hour was a blur of disbelief. I walked through the silent house, touching the back of David's empty chair, tracing the rim of the coffee mug I'd set out for my father. I didn't cry. It was a different feeling, a cold, sharp clarity that cut through the fog of my grief. My drama was the raw, open wound of losing my partner of 25 years. Their break was an act of calculated cruelty. I thought back to the past few weeks. Julian, my 46-year-old influencer brother, had been particularly agitated. He was always complaining about his brand needing a refresh. My parents, Arthur and Beatrice, had been sighing heavily whenever I mentioned David. "Martha, darling," my mother had said just last week, "we know you're sad, but you're just dragging the whole family down. Christmas is supposed to be happy." They saw my grief as an administrative problem, an inconvenience to their comfort. And I, the family trustee, was the ultimate convenience. I picked up my phone, no missed calls. "No, I'm sorry, Martha, we had to do this text." Just the group chat, sitting there like a monument to their selfishness. They had fled the sinking ship, only I wasn't the ship. I was the person they'd just thrown overboard. I sat at my desk, the one where I managed the Vance family trust. This desk was my fortress. From here, I managed the investments, paid the allowances, and approved the expenses that funded my family's comfortable, work-free lives. My parents, retirement, Julian's influencer career, it all flowed from this desk. From me. A sudden, cold anger replaced the shock. It was a feeling I hadn't felt in months. It was a spark. I looked at the picture from Julian again. We used the emergency card. He'd written it with such glee, such entitlement. That card was for catastrophic medical events or genuine, life-altering emergencies, not for a last-minute, luxury Hawaiian vacation to escape a grieving widow. They had forgo. T10 who I was, not just David's widow, not just the family downer. I was the trustee, and they had forgotten one crucial thing. The trust documents, signed by my grandparents, gave me sole and absolute discretion over all distributions. My role wasn't just to sign checks. It was to protect the trust from acts of waste, frivolity, or malicious intent. I pulled up the trust's banking portal. I saw the charge, $52,000, for a first-class holiday package at one of the most expensive resorts in Maui. Charged 5 days ago, hidden until they were safely in the air. My hand was shaking, but not from grief. It was from rage. A break from my drama, I whispered to the empty room. Okay. I picked up the phone, but I didn't text them back. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I did what I do best. I went to work. I dialed the number for the private wealth management firm that handled the trust's accounts. I knew the head of the fraud department, Robert, personally. Robert, I said, my voice steady and clear. It's Martha Vance. I need to report a series of fraudulent charges. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. And that was a language I understood perfectly. My family's relationship with money was simple. They loved to spend it, and I was in charge of it. This was the central conflict of our entire lives. My grandparents, clear-eyed and pragmatic, saw the voracious entitlement in their own children, my father, Arthur, and his siblings. They saw the laziness in their grandchildren, particularly Julian. They saw me, the quiet one, the one who balanced her checkbook at 12 and read stock reports for fun. So, they put me in charge. When they passed, I was 35, and the Vance Family Trust became my responsibility. My burden, my power. My parents, Arthur and Beatrice, were in their early 70s but acted like spoiled 40-year-olds. They had never truly worked. Their retirement was just a continuation of their lives, funded by the trust. They lived in a sprawling, paid-for home, belonged to 3 different country clubs, and believed that discretionary meant mandatory. My father was weak-willed, easily swayed by the last person who spoke to him. My mother, Beatrice, was the social climber, obsessed with appearances. My grief was, to her, a social embarrassment. People are starting to talk, Martha, she'd hissed. They think it's morbid, the way you're still not over it. But the true architect of my family's rot was my brother, Julian. Julian was 46 and had never held a real job. He called himself a lifestyle content creator, which meant he took endless photos of himself in expensive clothes, on expensive vacations, all paid for by the trust. He was charismatic, handsome, and utterly hollow. He saw me not as his sister, but as a miserly CFO who was stifling his brand. For years, he had been the main source of conflict. Martha, I need a $20,000 advance for a collab in Dubai, he'd demand. No, Julian, I'd say, that is not a trust-approved expense. Then came the tantrums, the emotional blackmail, the rallying of our parents. She's so controlling, Dad, it's our money. It wasn't their money, it was the trust's money, and I was its guardian. My husband David had always been my rock, my sounding board against their endless, grasping demands. You're doing the right thing, Marty, he'd say. Your grandparents knew what they were doing. Now, David was gone, and they saw me as weak, vulnerable, and most importantly, alone. The Hawaii plan reeked of Julian. It was his brand of grand, selfish, theatrical cruelty. He had likely convinced my parents that they deserved a break, that their lives were the ones being inconvenienced by my loss. He would have painted me as a black hole of sadness, a vibe killer. We needed a break from your drama. That was Julian's voice, typed out by his manicured fingers, but it was a sentiment my parents had clearly endorsed. They had packed their bags, likely giddy with the thrill of their escape. They had left their grieving daughter and sister behind on her first Christmas alone to go tan. The $52,000 charge wasn't just for a hotel, it was a statement. It was Julian, with my parents' blessing, testing the limits. They thought I was too broken to notice, too lost in my drama to fight back. They thought I was just sad Martha. They had forgotten I was Trustee Vance. I sat at my desk, the trust documents spread out before me. I remembered my grandfather, a stern, kind man, taking my hand the day this was all finalized. "Protect it, Martha," he'd said. "Protect it from them. They will try to burn it all down for a good time. Don't let them." I hadn't just been protecting the money. I had been protecting them from themselves. But as I sat there, the silence of the house pressing in, I realized my protection had a cost, my own well-being. They had drained me dry long before David ever got sick. His illness had just been the final straw. For them, my caregiving, my exhaustion, my eventual grief, it was all just drama to be avoided. I thought about the last 10 months, the hospital visits, the chemo, the late-night vigils. Not once had Julian visited. My parents had come twice, staying for 10 minutes each time, complaining about the hospital parking. "It's all so dreadful," my mother had said, wrinkling her nose at the smell of antiseptic. I had done it all alone, and now I was truly alone. A cold, hard resolve settled in my chest. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a declaration of war, and they had just given their enemy all the ammunition she would ever need. My call to Robert at the bank was short and precise. "Robert, it's Martha Vance. I need to report the high-limit emergency card for the Vance Trust as stolen, effective immediately. I also need to flag a charge from 5 days ago at the Maui Grand Resort for $52,000 as fraudulent." There was a pause. Stolen, Martha, or just unauthorized? Robert was a professional, but he also knew my family's dynamics. "Stolen," I said, my voice firm. "The cardholders are not in a fit state to manage their own funds and have absconded. I am invoking my power as sole trustee to protect the trust's assets from misappropriation. Freeze the card, and I want you to initiate a clawback on that hotel charge. Today." "A clawback will be," aggressive Martha, "the hotel will likely lock them out. They'll be stranded." "They are in a luxury resort, Robert, not a desert. They've made their choices. I'm making mine. Please proceed." "As you wish, trustee." I hung up. The first domino had fallen. My next call was to my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Sarah. I explained the situation. The text, the charge, the call to Robert. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Martha, I'm so sorry, first of all. But from a legal standpoint, this is the opportunity you've been waiting for, isn't it?" She was right. For years, I had battled Julian's creative accounting. I had suspected he was skimming, submitting invoices for brand collaborations that were just expensive weekends with his friends. My parents, in their blissful ignorance, signed off on anything he put in front of them. "They've called it drama, Sarah," I said, pacing my study. "They've used the emergency card. They've abandoned me. This isn't just a family dispute anymore. This is a breach of fiduciary duty." "It's more than that," Sarah said, her voice warming up. "Julian and your parents have colluded to misappropriate trust funds. They've done it openly, in writing. Martha, you have grounds to suspend all their distributions, indefinitely." That was the clever trap my grandparents had built in, the leverage I had always held but never used. The trust stipulated that any beneficiary found to be acting with malicious intent against the trust or its administrator could have their access revoked. My own access as trustee was separate. I wasn't funded by the trust, I was paid by it, a salary for my management as stipulated in the documents. I was, in essence, an employee. They were beneficiaries. And they had just attacked the CEO. "I want to do a full audit, Sarah," I said. "I want to go back 10 years. I want to find every fake invoice, every collab, every country club dinner Julian passed off as a business meeting. I'm going to take it all back." "I'll hire the forensic accountant today," Sarah replied. "You just sit tight, and Martha, turn off your phone." I did for 9 days. The silence was, for the first time, a comfort. It wasn't empty, it was clean. I deleted their texts without reading them. I ignored the 30-second long, angry voicemails from Julian that started on day 3. I took down the Christmas decorations, packed away David's things with a sense of peace, and let the accountants do their work. On day 5, Sarah called my landline. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "The forensic team is having a field day. Julian hasn't just been padding his expenses, he's been running a shell company." It turned out my brother's influencer brand was, in fact, an LLC. He would submit invoices from this LLC to the Trust for marketing services and brand development, which I had, in good faith, been paying. But the LLC's bank account, which we just subpoenaed, showed the services were just him. The money went in, and it went right back out to buy sports cars, designer watches, and down payments on properties I never knew he had. He had stolen, not just skimmed but actively, feloniously stolen, from the trust, from me. "The total is staggering, Martha," Sarah said. "We're looking at close to $2 million over 8 years. My blood ran cold. $2 million. All while I was pinching pennies, managing the trust's investments to ensure its long-term survival, and, for the last year, nursing my dying husband. "In the hotel?" I asked. "Oh, the hotel," Sarah clad grimly. Robert confirmed the clawback was successful. The charge was reversed on day 2. The hotel, as expected, was not pleased. They would have been notified of the fraudulent charge right away. I imagine things in Hawaii got difficult very quickly. I pictured it. Julian, striding to the pool bar, ordering a $40 cocktail, and having his card unceremoniously declined. My mother, trying to book a spa day, being told her account was in dispute. My father, trying to smooth it all over, only to find he had no tools to do so. The calls and texts on my muted cell phone had become frantic, I was sure. They were trapped in a paradise of their own making, with no money. And the person they had abandoned was the only person on earth who could help them. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't sad Martha anymore. On the 9th day, I decided it was time. The forensic report was preliminary but damning. My lawyer had a clear strategy. I had spent the week sleeping soundly, eating well, and rediscovering the profound, steely silence of my own resolve. I turned my cell phone's ringer back on. It took less than a minute. It didn't ring, it shrieked, vibrating violently on the desk. The caller ID was Julian. I let it ring 3 times, then answered, placing it on speaker. "Martha, where have you been? I've been calling you for a week." His voice wasn't the smooth, charming tone of his influencer persona. It was a raw, panicked screech. "I've been here, Julian," I said calmly. "You need to fix this, now," he screamed. They're treating us like criminals, they locked us out of our rooms, they declined all our cards. We're stuck in the hotel lobby, and they're saying we have to pay for the whole stay or they're calling the police. This is a nightmare." "A nightmare?" I repeated, my voice flat. "Tell me more about it." "What do you mean, tell me more? Are you insane? The emergency card isn't working. Call the bank, call your people, and fix this. Mother is having a panic attack." I could hear her in the background, a high-pitched wailing. "We're stranded, Martha, we're stranded. How could you do this?" "I didn't do anything, Mother," I said, my voice hardening. "You did. You, Father, and Julian took the emergency card, which is for emergencies, and booked a $52,000 vacation to escape my drama." I simply informed the bank that the card had been stolen. There was a sudden, sharp silence on the other end. "Stolen?" Julian's voice was lower now, more dangerous. "What are you talking about? We're the beneficiaries, it's our money." "That," I said, "is where you are mistaken." This was the first reveal. "It is not your money, Julian. It is the trust's money, and I am the trustee. And you, by taking that card under false pretenses, committed fraud. You misappropriated trust funds." "What?" my father Arthur mumbled, clearly having taken the phone. Martha, this is just a misunderstanding. Your brother. He just wanted to give your mother a nice Christmas. We were all so stressed from, your situation. My situation, the drama. My situation, Dad, was me grieving my dead husband. The man who was your son-in-law for 25 years. And you left me alone on Christmas morning to go to Hawaii. And you stole money from the trust to do it. It's not stealing if it's family, Julian shrieked, grabbing the phone back. You're just bitter. You're a bitter, lonely old woman and you're jealous. You're jealous that we can still have fun. His words, meant to be daggers, glanced off the new armor I wore. Am I Julian, or am I just the only one who bothered to read the trust documents? I picked up the forensic report. I'm curious. Does the name Global Vibe Creative LLC mean anything to you? The silence that followed was absolute. It was so total, I thought for a second the call had dropped. What did you say? Julian's voice was a whisper. I said, Global Vibe Creative LLC, your shell company, the one you've been using to invoice the trust for marketing services. The one you've used to defraud the Vance family of approximately $2 million over the last 8 years. He was stammering. The smooth-talking influencer was gone, replaced by the terrified little boy who'd just been caught. Julian, what is she talking about? My mother's voice was thin and reedy. She's lying, Julian bellowed, but it was a performance and a bad one. The threats were poorly executed, the lies obvious. She's a crazy, grieving widow. She's lost her mind. You can't prove any of that. I can, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. I have every single bank statement, every fake invoice, every wire transfer to your personal accounts. The sports car you said was a brand sponsorship. The trust paid for it. The influencer retreat in Bali, that was just you and your friends, wasn't it? The trust paid for that tea. Ew. I heard a thud and my mother started screaming, Arthur, Arthur. My father had apparently fainted. You've ruined us. Julian was crying now, pathetic, gasping sobs. They're going to arrest us. We don't have any money, Martha. We can't even buy food. That sounds like a terrible situation, I said, matching his tone from the text. A real drama. Please, he begged. Please, Martha, I'll pay it back, I swear, just get us out of here. Get us home. I'll apologize, we'll all apologize. The apology, the last refuge of the desperate. Apologies aren't what we're discussing, Julian, I said. We're discussing restitution. And the fact that you and mother and father are currently stranded in a hotel lobby in Hawaii, wanted for non-payment, and in possession of no valid credit cards. So what are you going to do? He whimpered. Are you just going to leave us here to rot? I smiled, though they couldn't see it. Rot? No, Julian, that's not my style. I'm going to help. I'm wiring money right now. A huge, gasping sigh of relief came through the phone. Oh, thank God, Martha, thank God. But, I interrupted, it's not going to the hotel, and it's not going to you. The begging stopped. What do you mean? I'm sending exactly enough money for 3 non-refundable economy class tickets home, plus baggage fees. The money will be waiting for you. All you have to do is go and pick it up. Pick it up where? The airport. I paused, savoring the moment. No, Julian, at the local police precinct. The scream that erupted from the phone was a sound I would cherish for the rest of my life. It was a symphony of Julian's rage and my mother's abject terror. The police, shrieked Beatrice. Martha, have you lost your mind? We can't go to the police. They'll arrest us. Arthur, she's sending us to the police. The hotel is already threatening to call the police, Mother, I said, as if explaining something to a child. This way, you're walking in on your own terms. I've wired the funds to the desk sergeant under a Stranded Citizens Assistance Program. They're expecting you. You did this, Julian roared. You set this up. This is a trap. No, Julian, I said, my voice like ice. This is a consequence. You created this situation. I am merely providing the solution you asked for. You said you needed to get home. This is how you get home. This was the second confrontation, the one where the irrefutable proof met their desperation. The hotel security, no doubt, was already flanking them. Their status as premium guests had evaporated the moment the $52,000 charge was clawed back. Now they were just liabilities, and the hotel wanted them gone. What about our passports?" my father, Arthur, said. He had apparently been revived. His voice was weak. "The hotel, they're holding our passports, Martha. They said they won't release them until we pay the bill." "And that," I said, "is the other reason you're going to the police precinct. You'll need to file a report. You'll need to explain to the Hawaiian police exactly how you managed to incur a $52,000 bill that you had no intention of paying. You'll have to tell them about the fraud." But we didn't. You said it was fraud," Julian sputtered. "I did," I agreed. "And you confirmed it. You used an emergency card for a non-emergency. You misappropriated funds. You'll have to give a full statement. I'm sure, once you explain that it's all a big family drama, they'll be very understanding and will happily retrieve your passports from the hotel." Julian was smart enough, just barely, to understand the box I had put him in. He had two choices. Go to the police, admit to everything in a sworn statement just to get the plane tickets, and face potential local charges, plus the humiliation. Stay in the hotel lobby and wait to be arrested for theft of services. You won't get away with this," he threatened, but his voice had no power. It was the desperate squeak of a cornered rat. "I already have, Julian," I said softly. "The audit is complete. Sarah, my lawyer, sends her regards. The forensic accountants found everything: the shell company, the fake invoices, the wire transfers, the $2 million. $2 million? My father's voice was a shocked gasp. He clearly had no idea of the scale of his son's theft. "Yes, Dad, $2 million. While you and Mother were encouraging him, telling him I was controlling and unfair, he was robbing the trust blind. He was stealing your future, your retirement. He was stealing my ability to care for the trust's future." My mother started to cry again, but this time it was different. It wasn't the high-pitched wail of a spoiled woman. It was the low, guttural sob of a woman who realized the game was over. "Oh, Arthur, what has he done? What has he done to us?" "He's ruined us," Arthur whispered. "She's got us. Oh God, she's got us all." "Jul." Ian was silent. The spell was broken. His enablers, his audience, his willing accomplices had finally seen the man behind the curtain. He wasn't a charismatic influencer. He was a common thief, and he'd just gotten his parents involved. "So, here are your options," I said, switching to my trusty voice. "The money for 3 economy tickets is at the Maui police station. It's enough for the tickets and a taxi to the airport. Not a dime more. You will go there, you will file your report, you will retrieve your passports, and you will get on the next flight home. When you land, you will not go to your comfortable, trust-funded homes. You will go to Sarah's office for a meeting. Is that clear?" "And if we don't?" Julian tried one last time, a pathetic attempt at defiance. "Then stay," I said, and I almost laughed. "Stay in Hawaii, with no money, no credit, no hotel, and a $52,000 warrant for your arrest. Frankly, Julian, I don't care which you choose." I hung up the phone. I sat in the silence of my study. The house was still empty. I was still a widow, but I was not a victim. The drama they had fled was about to be replaced by a very real, very legal, and very expensive crisis of their own. And I, Martha Vance, was going to be in charge of every single second of it. The showdown was not at a glittering family dinner or a public event. It was in the sterile, beige-carpeted conference room of my lawyer's office. It was, in its own way, far more humiliating for them. 3 days later, they walked in. They were not the same people from the Aloha picture. They were wrecked. My mother, Beatrice, who never left the house without full makeup and pearls, was sallow-faced, her expensive hair matted. My father, Arthur, looked like he'd aged 20 years, his shoulders slumped in total defeat. And Julian, he was almost unrecognizable. The charismatic glow was gone, replaced by a pasty, terrified pallor and a look of pure, unfiltered hatred in his eyes. They were all still wearing the same crumpled, garish Hawaiian-themed clothes they'd been wearing in the lobby. The tickets I'd bought didn't include checked baggage, and they hadn't been able to retrieve their luggage from the hotel. The scent of stale sweat and fear was overwhelming. I was sitting at the head of the table. I was not. I was dressed in a sharp, dark gray suit. My hair was perfect. My makeup was immaculate. Beside me sat Sarah, my lawyer, and a man named Mr. Henderson, the lead forensic accountant. In front of each of them was a thick, spiral-bound book. "Please sit," I said. My voice echoed in the quiet room. They sat down heavily, like puppets with their strings cut. "Welcome back," I said. "I trust your flight was economical." Julian opened his mouth, but Sarah cut him off. "Do not speak, Mr. Vance," she said, without looking up from her papers. "You will listen. You are here in this office as a courtesy. You are not here as beneficiaries. You are here as debtors to the Vance Family Trust." She slid the books toward them. "In front of you is a preliminary report from Mr. Henderson's team. It details, line by line, the $2.13 million you, Julian, have systematically defrauded from the trust over 8 years. You will also see, in Appendix B, a detailed accounting of all non-approved, frivolous expenditures made by you, Arthur and Beatrice, which you co-signed or enabled." My mother gasped, her hand flying to her throat. We didn't." "You did," I said, finally looking her in the eye. "Every spa retreat for Julian, every networking trip that was just a vacation. Every time you told me I was too strict and controlling and signed off on his expense reports behind my back. You were his accomplices." "Martha, please," my father whispered, tears welling in his eyes. We didn't know he's our son." "And I am your daughter," the words ripped out of me, louder than I intended, vibrating with 10 months of grief and a lifetime of frustration. "I was your daughter when I managed your money so you could retire at 50. I was your daughter when I cared for my dying husband alone while you complained about the parking. And I was your daughter on Christmas morning when you left me in an empty house to escape my drama. You don't get to use family as an excuse for him and as a weapon against me." I stood up and walked to the whiteboard at the end of the room. "Here is the new reality," I said. "As of this morning, I have invoked Clause 42B of the Trust, revocation of benefits due to acts of malicious fraud. Julian, you are permanently and irrevocably removed as a beneficiary. All funds are cut off, effective immediately." Julian lunged forward. "You can't do that." "I have," I said, "and I did." "Arthur, Beatrice," I continued, turning to my parents. "Your benefits are suspended, indefinitely, pending the full repayment of the $52,000 you misappropriated for your trip, plus associated legal and accounting fees. You will be downsizing. The trust will sell your home to cover these costs." "The house," Beatrice wailed. "You can't. Where will we live?" "That is no longer my concern," I said. "You are in your 70s. You have 2 arms, 2 legs. I suggest you get a job." That was the moment. The final, triumphant break. The look on my mother's face, the woman who hadn't done a load of her own laundry in 4 decades, was one of pure, unadulterated horror. "As for you, Julian," I said, walking back to the table, "we are offering you a choice. Mr. Henderson's report is sitting on the district attorney's desk. We can file it today. You will be charged with multiple counts of felony fraud, wire fraud, and embezzlement. You will go to prison." He was white as a sheet. "Or," I said, "you can sign this." Sarah pushed a single document toward him. "This is a confession of judgment," she explained. "You will admit to the full debt of $2,130,000. You will sign over the titles to your cars, the deeds to your properties, all of which the trust paid for, and you will agree to a wage garnishment plan of 50% of all future income for the rest of your life until the debt is repaid. If you miss a single payment, the criminal charges are filed. The choice is yours." Julian stared at the paper, his entire brand, his life, his future, all gone. He looked at me, his eyes begging. "Martha, please, I'm your brother." "No," I said, looking at the man who had left me to grieve alone. "You're a debtor, and I am the trustee." He stared at the paper for a full minute. Then, with a shaking, broken hand, Julian Vance, the influencer, picked up the pen and signed his life away. The downfall was as swift as it was total. Julian's confession gave me all the power. The trust immediately seized his assets. The condo, the sports car, the designer watch collection, all were liquidated. It barely made a dent in the $2 million he owed, but it was a start. He was forced to move into a sad, one-room apartment above a convenience store. His influencer career evaporated overnight when he could no longer post photos from private jets. His last post was a blurry photo of a bus stop. My parents' house was sold within a month. As I'd said, the proceeds went to pay back the $52,000 Hawaiian trip and the staggering legal and accounting fees they had incurred. They, too, were cut off. They ended up in a small, government-subsidized senior living apartment complex across town. My mother, Beatrice, was reportedly seen working as a cashier at a local grocery store. My father just faded. I did not see them. I did not call them. The ties had not just been strained, they had been incinerated. I, on the other hand, began to heal. The house, once silent with grief, now felt silent with peace. I rejoined the board of a local charity, something David and I had always been passionate about. I used my skills as a trustee not to gatekeep, but to grow, to help, to build. I took the Julian Fund, the money he would have wasted, and endowed a new wing at the hospice center where David had spent his final days. I called it the David Vance Wing for Compassionate Care. About 6 months later, I was at the dedication ceremony. It was a beautiful, sunny afternoon. As I was thanking the attendees, I saw a figure at the very back of the small crowd. It was my father. He looked old. He was wearing an ill-fitting suit. He waited until everyone else had dispersed, then approached me, hat in hand. "Martha," he said, his voice raspy. "Hello, Arthur," I said. I felt nothing, no anger, no pity, just stillness. "What you've done here, it's wonderful. David was a good man." "Yes, he was." He shuffled his feet. "Your mother, she's not doing well. She misses." He couldn't say it. "She misses the money, Arthur." "No," he said too quickly. "No, well, yes, but she misses you. I miss you. It's just so quiet. Julian, we don't see him. He blames us. He blames everyone." "And who do you blame, Arthur?" I asked. He looked down at his shoes. "I blame myself. I was weak. Your mother, Julian, I let them. I was a coward. I left my daughter when she needed me. I let them call your love for your husband drama. I can't ever forgive myself for that." He was crying, real, silent tears. I looked at him, this man who was my father, and I saw a stranger. A sad, broken old man. "I don't forgive you, Arthur," I said, and his face crumpled. "Not yet, maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't a switch I can flip, but I appreciate you coming here to honor David. That's a start." He nodded, wiping his face. "It's a beautiful wing, Martha. He'd be proud." "I am," I said. "I'm proud of me." He nodded again, gave me one last, broken look, and walked away. I watched him go, a small man disappearing into the sunlight. I turned back to the building. My work, my real work, was just edging, the trust was safe. My husband's memory was honored. And I, for the first time in my entire life, was free. The drama was finally, truly over.